Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's program hosted by the Livingston Alumni Association. My name is Jeff Armus. I'm current president of the Livingston Alumni Association, and I'm honored to host tonight's program. Livi at 50, a remembrance of Livingston College, Latino Studies, and the Livingston Panthers sports teams. Deepest thanks to Mike Rotowski, Director of Alumni Engagement for Rutgers University Alumni Relations staff, for his help in hosting tonight's program. Just as an aside, some of you may have attended, we had a celebration back last October 2000, oh boy, 2 years ago, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Livingston College, the formation from 1969. And we were planning to have a live event this spring, but because of COVID restrictions, we ended up, of course, having to postpone it. And then thanks to Marty and Deb O'Neill, we said, let's try something virtual. And that was kind of the brains behind this panel discussion. And we're focusing more on life at Livingston and clubs and organizations that we all have fond memories of. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, Livi is the nickname current Rutgers students have for the Livingston campus. The Livingston campus has undergone a lot of improvements and is the place for Livingston students to live when they're allowed on campus. It's important that current students and Livingston College alumni, like all of us, never forget what made Livingston famous and transformational. Its strength through diversity. We are fortunate to have Livingston graduates have special memories to share about Livingston College's early years. BernaDette Session, who graduated Livingston in 1975, was a member of the Livingston Panthers cheerleading squad. Lucille Lo Sapio, 76 Livingston graduate, was also a cheerleader. Dwight Williams coached the Panthers to their one and only championship in 1972, who, for alumni who are not familiar with Livingston's early years, Livingston had its own football and basketball teams, with the football team winning a championship. Margie Rivera graduated from Livingston in '73 and entered Livingston in 1969, the first year of Livingston's existence. And Grizel Ubarry graduated from Livingston in 1975. I hope I have those years right. Grizel, Margie, and others responsible for what this building is now the Department of Latino and Caribbean Studies, one of Rutgers' strongest programs. During our interviews, please submit your questions and memories of Livingston in the chat box. We'll read as many as time permits. To interview Margie and Grizel, I'd like to call on Iris Martinez Campbell, Livingston College class of 1975, and the Graduate School of Social Work, 1981. You're on mute, Iris.
Sorry about that. Good evening. Thank you, Jeff. Margie and Grizel, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have a couple of questions for you. So let me start by saying there is one correction. I believe Margie graduated in 1972.
No,
Is that correct?
No.
No, 73?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I graduated in 75.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the first question I'm going to ask Margie first is for you to take us back to 1969 when you graduated from Perth Amboy High School in New Jersey. And that September when you came to Livingston as an incoming freshman, what was your first impression or thoughts of the campus?
My first impression of the campus was nebulous a little bit, simply because I had never been on a college campus. I was a last-minute recruit to Livingston College for very personal reasons. I was not planning to go to school given what had occurred the previous year. And so college was not in my plans. But I was convinced by others, including my father, that yes, it was in my plans. So that my first impression was really excitement, apprehension, nervous, first generation first to go to college, didn't know what to expect, other than I know it was going to be more difficult than high school. But there was excitement at the same time because this was a new opportunity. I was born and raised in Perth Amboy, led kind of a sheltered life in quotation, and was really looking forward to it. But when I looked at the campus, I said, oh, this campus doesn't appear to be totally finished. So I was like a little amazed because on my way there, we actually did a detour through the Rutgers campus in New Brunswick, and certainly it totally looked different than the Livingston College campus. But needless to say, what was great about that first opportunity and that first insight was that it was new. It was exciting. I didn't know what really to expect, other than my parents dropped me off. They toured the little part of the campus with me, and then they said goodbye. So that was kind of nice because they trusted me to navigate. But what was even better is that though it was my first time on a college campus, I had other students from Perth Amboy High School that were also attending Livingston College. And I had other friends, male friends that were attending Rutgers College and one that was attending Douglas College. So I already had a cadre of support with my Perth Amboy graduates, which made it even a little bit easier to be able to do that adjustment. But however, it was a surprisingly nice adjustment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back and forth between you and Grizel.
That's
So
fine.
Grizel, when you came to campus in 1971, what were your first thoughts? You're on mute.
All right, I think I unmuted, correct?
Yes, you did. Yes.
Okay, good. So finally, I was trying to, I had to update my Zoom to be able to get on this call. And so,
Oops.
You're signed on twice.
yeah. Yikes.
Technology, don't you love it?
Hmm. You're still on mute.
I just turned the phone off because that was the only way I could get off
Okay.
of it. I had to update the Zoom to be able to get in, so I didn't want to be late for the Zoom meeting. I actually got a chance to go to Livingston College during a college bus tour that they, the field trips that they do when you're an early senior, so that you can decide what college you want to go to. And I had gone to a couple of them, and which most of them in South Jersey, because I'm from Camden, New Jersey. And then I had the opportunity to do a tour that I think the Latino college students organized, because it was all Latino students that were in that bus. They went from school to school picking us up. And so they had a whole program for us. They had professors that talked to us that were Latino. They had a program for us. We got to see the campus. So it was it was such an enticing tour in terms of my feeling, wow, this is a place I can relate to. These are people that look like me, that talk like me, that, that were really about supporting my culture, my history. And so I was blown away. I knew that this was the college that I wanted to go to just from doing that field trip. And so I immediately applied, got accepted, and first day of campus, my parents brought me up, and I was, I was game. I was, ready to take on the world.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am curious. So when you arrived, things were already happening. So I'm going to jump to Margie, because I think, Margie, you were instrumental in formulating a lot of what Grizel and I saw it when we came in 1970. Can
Yes.
you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. So the Latino population at Livingston when I enrolled in '69 was a small population. And we were like in clusters. So there was a cluster group from New York City, of course, the cluster group from Perth Amboy, because we were 4 of them from Perth Amboy. And then we had clusters from southern part of New Jersey to the northern part of New Jersey. And so since it was a small population, immediately the gentleman from New York City kind of took charge, so to speak, because they had already been on campus the previous summer within the EOF program. And so they got a list of the students, and they really, what they did was they hosted us for an afternoon. They said, we're here to help you, to support you. We've been on the campus. And so we are a small population, but we're going to be a voice to be reckoned with. That was one of the comments that one of our my esteemed colleagues back then, Charlie Roche, said, and he was from New York City. And so it evolved over time. And so as we looked around at Livingston, you know, one great thing about Livingston was that it was tolerant. It also had listening ears. It was not just about speaking and not taking action. And we immediately formalized a student organization. And I'll say it in Spanish because we actually always kept it in Spanish and never translated it into English. And it was Unión Estudiantil Puertorriqueña, because the majority of the students that attended Livingston when I was attending, we were of Puerto Rican descent. And so that kind of put us in the map, so to speak, because Puerto Ricans were growing in the state of New Jersey anyway. Many have migrated in the 40s and the 50s. So given that scenario, they took the lead, but we also followed. We were encouraged by some individuals knowing about the college campus, had been in the college campus already, and we're very focused on making sure that we had a voice and a say within the college setting. So immediately afterwards, Livingston College started a student assembly group, the Livingston Congress, and it was.
Like that, you know the stuff.
Excuse me? Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, we started a student organization, and at the same time, we asked for a voice at the table. And so what eventually happened, and Livingston faculty and staff were very receptive to say, you know, you want a voice at the table, then you'll have a voice. And so the Student Congress was really made up of 1/3 African Americans, Black students, 1/3 Caucasian, and the other would be the Hispanic students or the Puerto Rican students. And so from the very beginning, I think within months, we already had a voice at the table, and that just grew. We also had, because we had individuals already located in at Rutgers Newark, we had a fraternity with one of the student organizations there. And so between that campus and the Livingston College campus, started to.
She is out of the parents,
Is there some, I'm just pausing because I think I hear another voice.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Regardless, the key thing is that we were then able to mobilize and to start strategy about what we wanted to see happen. And for many of us, we really didn't know about Puerto Rican studies. You know, really that was happening mostly in the city of New York, city universities of New York. And so, but what was key about that was that there was shared information, and we started to evolve. So that when we looked around, we needed to grow the population here at the college, because now we knew that there, you know, diamond in the rough, that this was a place where Latino students, and in particular at that time, Puerto Rican students, could really grow their presence, not only on the college campus, but also have a voice. And so we evolved slowly but surely, but very quickly. Within months, we were already sitting at the table to make decisions about student affairs. We had already spoken to other individuals on other college campuses about Puerto Rican studies. And many of us, because we were raised in New Jersey, may not have had that historical aspect of who we were as a people. So we wanted to get to learn more. And so we actually started to advocate. We started with, the Dean of Students. Immediately thereafter was Dean Linton, who was the Dean of the college at that time, and conversations immersed. But at the same time, we had one or two faculty members, both on the Rutgers Newark campus and also on the Livingston College campus, that also guided us through the process. So I really also, hands down to Hilda Hidalgo, Professor Hilda Hidalgo, who many of us had the pleasure of taking many of her courses, that she really kind of helped us shape what we were really asking for. Because when you're a student, you want to ask for everything. But it was a sense of priority. You had to prioritize. So what comes first? What's most important to you now? And that was the dialogue to say, if you want to grow the population of Latino students, especially Puerto Rican students here, we need to know more about our history. We need to know more about our culture. Not that we didn't know about our culture, but really the historical aspects of our culture, which was really more important to us than anything else. And that evolved over time. And eventually we were told yes. And it didn't happen overnight. It was a constant conversation framed in what we call, hopefully, in a strategic way, that we needed to start somewhere. And we didn't leave it, by the way, we didn't leave it just at the Puerto Rican Studies program back then in the day. We also talked about financial aid. So who's in financial aid that is also supportive and available to us. We talked about the admissions office. So when we were speaking about wanting the full benefits of our population, the similar to the white Caucasian population and the Black African population on campus, we just simply said that in order for us to be recruited, you have to send delegates that look like us. And that conversation kept on going. I was a member of the Unión Estudiantil Puertorriqueña. I also chaired at one point, well, I chaired it for 3 years, the program aspect, everything programmatic that took place on the college campus. Then I, at the first year, was it, with the help of my esteemed student colleagues. So we had shared responsibility. I hope that kind of addresses a little bit about how we got started.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's see. My next question, if I could find them here, because I wrote them down. I'm sorry. My grandson interfered and I kind of lost my train of thought. Okay, so when Grizel and I arrived in 1971, yeah, things were already starting.
Mhm.
And then we kind of joined in. How, there were many political and social causes on campus. Can you tell us, for Grizel, I know Margie, you kind of talked a little bit of what you went through. Grizel, can you tell us what kind of issues, situations you participated in?
Well, I was very fortunate that I had a work study stipend, and I was able to use that work study time at the Puerto Rican Studies Department, which is now the Latino Caribbean Department. And so I was able to see all that was happening there. And there was quite a bit around so many different types of protests and crises. I remember two of them. One of them was when they were beginning to talk about centralization, where they wanted to centralize all of the college campuses. And so we fought, the Puerto Rican Studies Department fought it, as well as many of the students. So that was a big, that took for a very long time. I remember working in the office and just seeing the number of memos that were coming through in terms of how to address this issue, and the faculty that was very concerned, as well as the students. So that was one that was very clear. The other one was certainly the one regarding the two Latino students that were brutalized by the police, campus police, and that caused a huge amount of uproar. Again, it involved the Puerto Rican Studies Department, along with a lot of the Latino faculty and the students. And so both of those are the two that I remember the most, because I participated in them. And I was very active in those days. Was just like everybody who was there. We took our protests very serious. But there were others. And at some point you had to sort of make up your mind, do I keep going to protest or do I get to study? So at some point you start pulling back from that. But there, it's interesting how the centralization issue took a lot of energy from the department as well as from folks. And it was not an easy, it was not a win-win battle for us, as we all know. It was a process that eventually caused the elimination of Livingston. But that one is the one that I remember the most because that was quite long. That didn't go away at all, where the campus police thing eventually got resolved.
Okay. What about sit-ins? I know that I remember being part of that too. What you talked about, Grizel. And Margie, I remember being part of sit-ins.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
How many sit-ins did we not do? Several. So I was a member also of the Student Democratic Society. So I remained after my freshman year, I was an EOF summer program counselor to receive the next group of EOF or EOP students, as you would want to call them. And so I had an opportunity, unfortunately, well, it was the 60s. So you did war protests, you went to Washington, DC, to New York City, wherever there was a cause to be able to have our voices heard about how unfair we felt that the war was, then a cadre of us, including myself, would go to some of those demonstrations. Within the school, yes, the campus police issue was one of them, where we actually, for lack of a better word, we took over Dr. Edward Blaustein's office, and we closed Old Queens building. It was one. There was another one at the same time that we were doing that, because we were also wanting more services that would address the Latino experience on our college campus. So some of the ask of the university didn't take such a big, were not a big challenge, but others were, and including even the Puerto Rican Studies program back then, which eventually became a department, was an ask, and it was a multiple ask. I think the good thing about that is that we had the support of the dean of the college, and that really went a long way. Had we not had a support from some of the administrative individuals, including the faculty members that were there, it would not have taken place, because what they say, it takes a village. And at Livingston College, you needed to be in a village in order to get things done.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see, moving on. Okay, I have one important question before we move on.
5 more minutes, Iris, okay?
Okay, thank you. And I'll combine two questions together. As a Latino student, how did your experience at Livingston help, or did it help in any way to shape your life career? That's the first question. And then the other question is, do you continue to connect with your classmates? So this question is for the both of you. So if you can each take like 2 minutes to answer that for me, please, for us.
Surely. So if I had to reflect very personally, I think that that experience that I had, really enabled me to see beyond the forest and be able to take active roles, because I was an activist as an undergraduate student. And so every role that I took, whether it was at the university, because I was employed by Rutgers University for 10 years, I always not only did the work that I needed to do in my workplace, but also what was my extension to outside of the community? How do we keep our voices heard? Because then at that point in time, Latino students were coming in by hundreds at different campuses from North Jersey to South Jersey. And so we really wanted to make sure that we had a voice wherever we went, And so for me, the legacy is that it helped build the volunteerism that I have and that I still hold very dear to me. So wherever I go, it doesn't make any difference what state that I'm in. I find my niche to be able to be of service and to be of service to the broader community, but especially to the Latino community, which at that time really was in great need of what I would call a leader or a follower, because you don't have to be a leader in order to be able to make change. But I saw myself in various roles every single time taking that charge, whether it was through non-for-profits, whether it was through volunteerism. I served on the Montclair State University Board of Trustees for 5 years. And so that whatever role I had, can my voice be heard and recognized, and the importance of being in a very inclusive society. And so that's been my mantra. It still is today. And I'm really proud of that legacy that I have and that I will continue to hold strong and dear to my heart.
Thank you. Grizel, can you answer that?
Sure. My entire career has been about social justice. As soon as I graduated, I went to work into a nonprofit. It was never a question in my mind that that's where I wasn't going to go. You know, it was always, I felt like from day one that I was going to be about serving, being a social service leader. And so my 38 years have been working with nonprofit organizations all over the country, basically doing community development, working in the most marginalized communities, trying to figure out how to build, how to create wealth building in these communities. And so, and that will be what I would continue to do. But I got that consciousness from being a student at Livingston. And so that's, you know, that's what I take with me, and that's what will always be inside me, that it gave me the consciousness to always think about those less entitled, and to see what I could do to make a difference in their lives.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think that that wraps it up. Hold on. A few, what does that say? A few current, there's a chat. A few current former faculty, Department of Latino and Caribbean Studies are happy to be here this evening to hear about your experiences. We appreciate the work that went into building the program years ago. Yolanda Martinez San Miguel, Lilian Fernandez, and Kathy Lopez. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I do remember all of you. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. You know, this is the first that we're trying to do this, and you know, if you have any ideas for future programs, please send us an email. Let us know. First, I have to make a comment that listening to the way back when of history of Livingston, Ken was not the chief of police then. So I just want to make sure it was Ken Coffin. He's our current Rutgers chief of police, and he's a distinguished alumni of Livingston College. So let's just want to make sure that Ken wasn't meant personally.
Yeah, I was actually just going to comment to say that you know, we've come full circle, and now our chief of police, which is me, is a Livingston College grad, or was a Livingston.
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
So, but I appreciate the history and what everybody has to offer there, and you know, with everything that's going on, we've had interactions with student leaders, and the conversations have been very productive.
Excellent.
So I love history, and I love to hear about the student activism and what went on in the 70s to create what Rutgers is today. So I appreciate everybody's social justice back in the day that brought us to where we are. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
You know,
you.
before your time, when I think it was my freshman year, there was a lot of protests going on, of course, and the students actually had to sit in at the Rutgers Pitt basketball game, and Phil Sellers was pleading with the student leaders to get off the court, and Rutgers ended up having to forfeit the game. So there was a lot of social justice things going on back in the day.
Yep.
So thank you, Iris, Grizel, and Margie. And keep those questions coming. You can have the chat box and we'll read them as they come along. I appreciate your comments. So now let's talk to BernaDette, Lucille, Dwight, and Rick about the Livingston Panthers. I saw a comment, I think from Sue, that there was also volleyball and all those other things. So that we
Baseball,
can
yeah.
at another time. But tonight we're just going to focus on the Panthers. And why don't we start with Dwight, since he was the coach? So you want to give us a little bit of how you found out, how you were recruited to be the coach of the Livingston
Oh,
Panthers?
boy. Yeah, thanks for having an opportunity to join this conversation here. I apologize for being late. I came to New Jersey after graduating from Delaware State College in Dover, Delaware in 1970. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and while at Delaware State, we had a protest in 1968 to close down the university. The National Guards came and state troopers, and they really pushed us off campus. We were protesting the naming of a brand new men's dormitory. We wanted to name after Medgar Evers. The school wanted to call it Boys Dorm Number 2. So we just took over the administration building, surrounded by policemen, surrounded by, again, National Guardsmen and women, and sent us home. I graduated from that HBCU in 1970, went off to graduate school at Rutgers, and I was just a regular student on the main campus. And I think it was called College University Heights or something. It was up the hill, and I had no idea that there was a college back there. And I found out that they were seeking a coach for the football program. And I met with the Wolf, Joe Wolf or something to that.
Jim Wolf.
Okay, and he was asking me if I would want to coach. I said, sure. I've had some experiences in that area because I played 4 years Delaware State, and as a matter of fact, I'm in the Hall of Fame at Delaware State anyway. But that's a side back. But when I got to Rutgers and Livingston, the student body was robust. And I remember the protests that were going there, the hanging outs that were going there, and that took I took a liking to that. I was also a member of G5G Social Fellowship Incorporated, and I didn't expect to find any in New Jersey, or at least at Rutgers, but I did find some. Rick Williams is one. So we started the football program in 1971, and I graduated from the graduate program at Rutgers in 1971, 1972. And while I was an undergrad, my minor was Spanish, because from 8th grade through my graduation, I had Spanish as a minor. And as fate would have it, I also had a job in Perth Amboy. And I'm reading, I had a proposal there that funded, we had a drug treatment program there. And I realized the population was about 45%, mostly Puerto Rican at that time, but no representation on City Hall or Board of Education, those kinds of things. So Perth Amboy started to organize and protest the lack of representation. At the same time, almost Livingston was doing it. But I was playing, I was coaching with the football team, and the first year we were 0-7. It was a tough year. The next year we came back, won the championship, and we were pretty competitive from the 5-6 years that I was there. Ricky was significant contributor to the program. As a matter of fact, the championship game, first play of the game, he busted off tackle 67 yards for a touchdown. So we knew we were getting ready to have a great day that time. But the diversity of the school at Livingston was quite impressive. I remember walking through the mud when we had to practice, and students walking through the mud. There was this wooden building someplace. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was like there were no paved paths, and students would just walk there and come back with muddy shoes, muddy boots, and those kinds of things. But I also saw the student body get more involved. The protest there. There was many entertainment events there. Muhammad Ali came to Livingston, and I remember meeting him, and what impressed me about him was that how big he was, at the same time how fast he was. But he was very, very shy. He didn't make contact with anyone. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. But when he stepped on that stage, he electrified the place. And reading, I think what was the New Brunswick paper, there was always something there about Livingston College. I mean, Livingston students protesting. And that era, people weren't as sensitive to minorities, folk of color, having a say-so in activities that impacted their lives. It was a very, very good opportunity. I coached Livingston for about 5-6 years. And then I went off into my career in health planning. So currently, I'm a retired professor at the School of Public Health University at Albany. But memories from some of the players, I stay in touch with them. Also was very impressive is how the Black students and the Hispanic students, particularly Puerto Ricans, bonded together. You rarely saw a football player who was alone and not with one of his teammates. And this particular situation, we had a home game, and we had a bed check at about 10 o'clock. So I'm knocking on doors, trying to make certain that the players are in bed. So I knocked on this door, and one of the players came, and I told him, I said, I'm just checking on you. And I looked in the bed, it was his girlfriend. I went to Delaware State. You didn't have co-ed visitation at Delaware State or any HBCUs. And I'm saying, what is this? And also I noticed in his room, he had a TV, a telephone. And I'm saying, my college has really changed. So I knock on another player's room. He had his girlfriend in there. I said, my goodness, what kind of place is this? But I adapted and had some very good times there, and appreciative for being a part of this conversation. Staying in touch with many of the players that still exist, but the camaraderie, the coming together, how that when we play games, folk would just bond. And no one had any financial scholarships, financial assistance related to playing football. And how the ladies on campus formed their own cheer squad. Mm-hmm. They had one shout, oop, oop, upside the head, oop, oop, right. Upside the head. It was like, and we at Livingston, we had black and silver uniform, silver helmets with Black Panthers on the side. And that was a pretty intimidating when we played predominantly white school, showing up with a team full of Hispanics and Black folk dressed in all black. It was at that point in time, the Black Panthers and their experiences there. It was a great time. Somebody sent me a chat question. I can't remember what it was. Oh, what school did I go to? Delaware State College, over Delaware. And came to Rutgers. My career got started as well, and retired now. Still on the faculty at University of Albany, teaching public health, which is premised on social justice. And I would oftentimes tell my students, I said, I was director of that program as well. I said, if you are timid about talking about race, politics, ethnicity, and religion, you're in the wrong class. You've taken the wrong path to develop in your career. But had a great time there, a lot of reminiscing. And as a matter of fact, my wife is from Perth Amboy.
All right.
So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Dwight. Thanks for this great stories. Let's shift over to Lucille. I see BernaDette, you sent the note that you weren't a cheerleader, you were on a dance squad. So let's do Lucille first, and then we'll go to BernaDette, and then we'll have Rick show his picture of his touchdown. Okay, so why don't you share with us, Lucille, you know, how did you get involved with the cheerleaders, and did you go to away games, or just home games, or just share with us your experiences?
Well, actually, I started Livingston in 1970, and it was kind of the reverse of the real world, because the white students were not interested in being in any of the activities. They were hippies. They were very non-traditional, and most of the clubs and activities were dominated by the Black students and Puerto Rican students. So there developed on campus a sort of white paranoia. A lot of white students felt that, oh, you know, we're not allowed to be in those clubs, and we can't do this, and they'll never let a white person be on the cheerleading squad. And I guess I'm the kind of person that wants to prove other people wrong. So even though I was a staunch supporter of women's lib, I had been a cheerleader since I'd been in the 7th grade. So I knew I could make the cheerleading squad if I tried out. So I said, I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong. So I tried out, I made the cheerleading squad, and ended up being the only white cheerleader. But it was, and I said, okay, I proved it, I'm right. That was the most important thing to me, being right. But it was a great group of women, and went to a lot of great parties. You know, we sponsored parties over at the gym on occasion. And the rule was you had to get out there and dance. And to me, that was like the best thing. So we had home games, and we had away games, and we would, you know, it was a bus provided by the college, and we would all go out there, and you know, it was fun because we were almost always playing all white schools. So
How many cheerleaders were there, Lucille?
I think we had 8. There were 8 or 10.
Okay.
And
Are you still in touch with any of them today?
actually, we had a little get together with some former Livingston students just about a month ago. Carolyn McKinney was there. She was a cheerleader with me. But other than that, I hadn't kept in touch with them. But I have kept in touch with a lot of other people that I went to Livingston with.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and BernaDette, so why don't you share, because I didn't realize that you weren't on the cheerleader squad. Why don't you share about the dance squad? And you said you were on the basketball team?
Yeah, I had played basketball in high school, and that's how I was actually down at the gym, which was down by those old wooden buildings where the mud, you know, you didn't go when it was raining, you had to muck through the mud to get to anything on the north end of campus. And somebody asked about the cheerleading squad and all that, and I went over, and they were already pretty well established, but they were talking about a dance team, and there were some students there, and so we said, yeah, we can do that. So we went out. I didn't know we were going to have to wear fur hot pants, and we had these rabbit fur outfits and everything, and I looked for pictures and couldn't find them. But when the cheerleaders were leading the cheers and all that, our job was to be dancing, and then at the like half times and all that kind of stuff, we'd have these routines we would do and work the stands and everything, get everybody all up to cheer and all that. And so that's kind of what we did.
Excellent. Now, what I see in the box here, Deb Miller is asking, how many years did the Panthers, how many years were they in existence? Does anyone have that history? Because I know they were there in 77 when I was there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They were there the whole time I was there. And so I'm thinking if you'd have to ask somebody who was there after I left.
Okay. Hey, so Rick, why don't you share with us about playing on the team? How'd you find out to join it? And, you know, show us that picture of that touchdown you scored.
I will. It was a great experience. I entered Livingston back in 1970, and I was originally a member of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. So I started out my freshman year with the Scarlet Knights, and I also started out my sophomore year, and I wasn't getting the playing time that I had wanted there, and I knew Livingston had a team, and I had talked to the coaches at Rutgers, and they were supportive in terms of me coming over and playing with Rutgers. And so I came over to Livingston, and it was one of the greatest experiences. I have lifelong bonds with a lot of the players from Livingston, and we had a real mix. We had a lot of Black players. We had a white quarterback amongst the two quarterbacks. We had some white players. We had Hispanic players, and it was just a really good bond. And I was, thinking, I said, if I thought back, what did Livingston do for me? Livingston really made me the person I am today, whereas I'm well-grounded. I love people. I'm out in the social arena here in Scotch Plains. And, it was just a good environment for me. Now, talking about the football team and Dwight Williams, we were on a conference call a few months ago, and Dwight held up the football when I scored the touchdown. But I went back into my storage area, Dwight, and I'm a real hoarder. And I was able to find the actual picture of me scoring the touchdown. And that was the touchdown that I scored for Livingston. So I made a copy for Roe so that it can be with the Livingston alumni. And I also made a copy for you, Dwight, so you can put my picture next to the football.
All right. So when you said you started on the Scarlet Knights, so was there interaction between the Frank Burns team and the players on the Livingston Panthers?
Yes, as a matter of
when I was a student, Mike Fisher was a running back, and he
Right.
was in a lot of my classes. He was a Livingston student,
Mhm.
and it seemed. I was just wondering if there was interaction between the
Oh,
Panthers.
yeah, there were a few of the players that attended Livingston that were on the Rutgers football team, and there were a few of the players that came over from Rutgers that played on the Livingston team. So
Oh, excellent.
we had a great reaction, and DC had made a point before that when some of the Rutgers players graduated, they also came over and coached at Livingston. So,
Oh, wow. Wow.
mhm.
So where did you play your games? Because I'm trying to picture, was it down by the gym or where was the field?
We played over, I think, and BernaDette and Lucille and them will have to correct me. We played over, it was by the old post office. And there was just a wide open field, and we got out there and people were out there and, kind of tapping the field down and things of that nature. I think DC, you can tell more about that also, right? Because they played at Douglas too.
Antilles Field at Douglas.
Oh, okay.
And that patch of property at Livingston they gave us, it was just full of stones and bricks. We actually would practice by just picking up as many stones as we possibly could and bricks. And the university leveled the playing field, to borrow a thought there, and they just made it into a field. We had some bleachers on the side. So yeah.
That's great.
If you go to the '74 yearbook, they actually show some of the players actually out there working on the field, cleaning, taking the rocks off and things of that nature.
So anyone that, I don't know if you guys know, but we have as many of the yearbooks scanned that are on the livingstonalumni.org website. So if you want to go back, I don't think there was one in '76 because I know Rosemary's pictures in our '77 yearbook, but as many as we could have been scanned, and they're on our website. So if you want, take a look. They're great memories.
Mhm, mhm.
I like to add a name. Noah Hart was the sports
Right.
information person at Livingston at that point in time. And he was very instrumental in publicizing the history of the program, the football team. We were always on the underfold of the first page of the New Brunswick newspaper sports section.
Great. So how did you turn around the team, Dwight, from 0 wins to winning the championship?
Well, we had some good players. We had some very good players. We had cooperation. Walt Davis, who actually was a counselor at the Rock, and we had other folk who volunteered. Jim Wolf was a campus policeman. He was the head coach, and we had players who had some skills. They just didn't get recognized to get scholarships to some of the larger schools. But we were able to just come together. And it was like at that point in time, Livingston students or minority students at Rutgers University were at a point where, I know from my point of view, we were constantly trying to establish ourselves, because there was a lot of isolation at the Rutgers University. I remember in one classmate said, "You are allowing Black and Hispanic students in this program, and they don't do well on the standardized test." You know, you had that kind of open resistance to us being there. So we've always felt we had to prove ourselves. And after we were 0-7, then we turned it around.
Excellent. Excellent. Hey, so Nate, you put a comment here that you were a member of the basketball team in the gospel here?
Yes, it was, yep.
And which basketball team? Did Livingston have a basketball team as well?
Yes, they did.
And we played at the gym down near the
Yes.
barracks?
Mhm. Yeah.
And what was that? What was your record there? Do you remember? Well, first, I guess for football and basketball, what were the schools that we played against? I know you were talking about Kings. You know, which other schools were we playing against?
Brooklyn College, Stony Brook,
Right.
Mattituck.
Mattituck,
Patterson.
some schools in the mountains of Western Pennsylvania. Can't remember the names of those schools. William Patterson, as Ricky said, it was a conference of about 8-10 students. And to give you an idea of the caliber of players we had, we dominated the All-Star games, all conference players.
So I'm seeing a comment here from Queen Sue that Frank Burns was a great supporter of the Panthers, which is great to hear.
Yeah.
And that Mike Fisher was an assistant coach under Coach Elvin Washington for a year or two. I didn't know that. Let's see. BernaDette said the field was a bit rough, open bleachers like in high school.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
There was a lot of excitement in the crowd, like Dwight had said, you know, the cheers were quite original, I'll say that, and they were somewhat intimidating to the opposing team too.
Okay.
You know, I also must add, our players graduated.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the first graduation at Livingston College, and I watched many of the parents with glee on their faces. We had one player whose father came up to us one day after graduation. He said, "I want to thank you guys for saving my son's life." And that was powerful. I keep that in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
He was hanging out real tough in Brooklyn.
So we are coming up on almost time to end. So we're gonna stop the recording at 8 o'clock, and then anyone that wants to stay on and continue sharing memories could stay on, which we would love to hear more. I just wanted to throw out a couple things first that we hope you enjoyed this discussion, and we're planning some other ones in the future. So first off, May 2nd, Rosemary is instrumental. Every year we have a little reception at for the Livingston Theater Company's performances. And, you know, with not having live performances or limited participation, we're actually planning a behind the curtain event with members of the Livingston Theater Company. So be on the lookout. Should be an e-blast coming out about that. We'd love for you to participate. On June 8th, we're going to be sponsoring with the School of Communications a conversation with Vivian Lama. And Vivian is a Livingston College grad as well. And she covers national security for the Wall Street Journal. She's covered U.S. foreign policy and national security issues for nearly 2 decades, reporting from more than 80 countries. So that's also should be a very interesting program. We're planning an event in June to be details to follow. And then, as I said, you know, because we had to postpone our in-person event, we begin starting our Distinguished Alumni Award dinner again. Ken was a previous winner and we honored, and I'm very happy to see you here as well. So we're going to be planning one at the Rutgers Club, which is on Livingston campus in the spring of 2022. So anyone that you could think of that you think that as fellow graduates we should honor, you know, please be on the lookout. We'll be having it posted on the website and there'll be an e-blast, you know, and we welcome participation and nominations from anyone that you think worthy. And just one little plug, since I have a captive audience, anyone that'd be interested in joining the Alumni Association on the board, we're always looking for members and officers. And, you know, we have, who's on now? We have Marty, Rose, Iris, Joe Capo, Deb, you know, so we have a, you know, kind of a small but strong group, and we'd love to have more volunteers. So with that, so I think we're ready to close out for the evening. And like I said, anyone that would like to stay on, please stay on, and, you know, we'll stay open for a little longer. These are great stories, and really enjoyed hearing